Well, there's another inside weed edge fish, guys. This is what we're talking about today. Inside weed edges. What we're fishing today, is this inside weed edge. Now, let's see if you can, yeah, you can kind of see this weed here, and then it ends, and there's just this little opening, maybe about 6 feet, where the weeds end, and it starts making that gradual incline back up to the bank area. But we're gonna work this and, get a little bit more information about inside weed edges. Stick around, guys. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher, and we're working inside weed edges today. And we're just gonna kind of go over the... Oh. Hang on a minute. There it comes. There's fish all up along those things. They got the rocks behind them and they got the weeds in front of them, or vice versa. They're basically just cruising that seam. It's probably about 4 or 5 feet deep where the weeds meet the rocks, and they're just cruising that seam. And later in the evening, and this is there's 2 fish right here. Now again, we're right over here by the dam, so there's probably a little bit of current, so I would assume that this is going to be a prime area, and that's why there's been 2 fish in this one area. Guys, one of the things about an inside weed line, it's no different than if you're fishing an outside weed line. You usually... Oh, there's one. I'll get back to that point. There we go. So what I was saying is, you usually need to, these are all just little fish, you usually need to find the differences in the weed line. A straight weed line isn't, it's not that there isn't going to be fish there, but the fish are more than likely going to congregate and be at the places that it's something different. It's whether it's a bunch of boulders, dock pier, corner, where there's some kind of change. In this situation right there where I just caught that fish, like I said, we're getting to the dam. There's going to be there's a drop off where it gets deeper, and there's a corner. So when you're working those inside weed lines, be aware of where the differences are. Maybe you've got a willow tree hanging over the bank, or a lay down that's coming off of the bank and hanging over in there. Anything that makes it even better than the weed line that's butting up against the rocks in the first place. And I'm not sure if you can tell this or not, but when I'm making my cast, I'm initially trying to make that cast get close to shore. Not because that's where I want to fish, because the fish aren't up there. But if I can get that cast close to shore and then bring it back, now that bait's going to drop right into the deepest part, which is right in front of where the weeds make that wall. There's a variety of baits that you can use when you're throwing inside weed lines. A wacky rig works good, and I like it, and I just happen to have it on. Obviously, you can throw a floating worm really good. I mean, you can put a weighted soft plastic. It's anything that gives you the ability to get down next to that weed line and into those rocks. Obviously, you don't want something where you're going to get hung up on the rocks. That's kind of why I like throwing this bait here. It just kind of gives me the ability to kind of just place it in there. If you can see that, that's a perfect inside weed line, and with the rock that comes out, and it just forms that deeper little channel. So you got the rocks on the inside, and you got the real, it's just like this, if you can see into that grass, but a weed wall on the other side. And you can see that inside weed line. Here's what I was talking about before, where you've got an opening. That rock goes down deep, but you can see that weed line going all the way in that open area, that inside weed line. We got a spectator. Tell you what, when I was younger, fishing inside weed edges was something that was kind of like a big surprise to me. And it's, you know, when you find the right situation, and I'll tell you what, one of the places that I love doing this is up on the Mississippi River near La Crosse. Caught some big fish that in the morning they cruise those inside weed lines. But guys, anyway, love to hear your comments on it. Love to hear your stories about fishing inside weed lines, and I appreciate you tuning in all the time. I really do, and I hope you have a good afternoon, a good evening, and we will see you again tomorrow on another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.